Good evening. I'm Malcolm King, interim president and a proud alumnus of the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art. Thank you for choosing to join us here tonight. As you've just heard, the Cooper Union is among the very best colleges in the nation for students pursuing degrees in architecture, art, and engineering. Peter Cooper established this institution as a free center of learning for people to acquire useful knowledge that would allow them to support themselves and to contribute to their communities. This historic Great Hall has been an essential part of the institution since its founding as a New York City forum for civic discourse. This is where people have expressed ideas, debated issues, reflected on society, and participated in the civic life of our nation for 165 years. All of these ideals, access to opportunity, lifting up communities, and civic engagement will converge again in this historic hall during tonight's conversation with our esteemed guests. We're grateful for the opportunity to have them here tonight. I am especially grateful to an esteemed alumnus, Chris Currow, who is instrumental in introducing Jeff Atwood to the Great Hall. So thank you, Chris, for initiating. Thank you, Chris, for initiating the conversations that led to tonight's program and for your steady support of our alma mater in so many other ways. On that note, our academic programs and public events are made possible by the support of our donors, and Chris is among them. If our educational mission resonates with you, or if you enjoy our public programs, please consider making a gift at cooper.edu/give. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's distinguished guests. Alexander Vindman is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel and former Director for European Affairs at the National Security Council. His story, from Soviet refugee to the upper echelons of American national security, embodies the power and spirit of American opportunity. His defense of democratic principles offers unparalleled insight into our current societal challenges. Jeff Atwood, software developer, writer, and co-founder of Stack Overflow and Discourse, is a pioneer. His work building digital communities based on democratic principles has connected millions worldwide. He has insight on what we can learn from self-governing online digital communities to create the economic frameworks for the future. One note, our guests will answer a few questions at the end of the program. If you'd like to submit a question, please email it to communications@cooper.edu during the talk. Okay, right. You just see it on the screen behind me. So now let's begin. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and Jeff Atwood.
It's hard to see the crowd here. It looks like a lot of friends, a lot of friendly faces. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Alex Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army retired. It's an honor standing before you alongside my friend Jeff Atwood at Cooper Union, a place deeply woven into the fabric of American history. Here, actually at this lectern, Abraham Lincoln delivered a speech that helped define his presidency and set the course of our nation at a time of immense strife. Today, we gather at another pivotal moment where American democracy, our values, and global leadership are again being tested. Jeff and I come from different backgrounds, yet we are both proud Americans, connected to the American dream. We lived it, we know it, and we understand its immense value. I want to use this opportunity to talk about the American dream, because protecting it has been a driving force in my professional career, and expanding access is central to my mission in life. My successes were made possible by sacrifices and the efforts of those who came before me, who protected and expanded access to that dream. My family's story is quintessentially an American story, so much so that my first book was subtitled An American Story. Let me share some of that story with you, because it explains better than anything else what their American dream means to me. In 1979, my family came to the United States as refugees fleeing despotism. We fled the Soviet Union, one of those nightmarish 20th century communist regimes. We left behind a regime that crushed dissent and institutionalized anti-Semitism, a regime where the state controlled nearly every aspect of life, where expressing the wrong opinion could cost you your job, your freedom, or even your life. My father, at 47 years old, my grandmother at 69, my older brother at 11, and my twin and I, just 4 years old, arrived with nothing. But America offered us freedoms, speech, religion, protest, and a chance at opportunity and prosperity. For my father, the decision to leave his home was not easy. My mother had recently passed away from cancer. He saw a news report about the Shah of Iran recovering from cancer treatment here in New York, the same cancer that took my mother's life. That, coupled with the promise of opportunity for his children, solidified his resolve to leave behind his life of oppression and seek a brighter future in America. My father knew that in America, his children would not be seen as second-class citizens. Here, our potential would be determined by our effort, not a state that categorized people based on their ethnicity, beliefs, inheritance, or other categories meant to exclude. The journey of refugees is both one of hope and hardship. We arrived with little, just a few suitcases, the clothes on our back, but also a determination to build a brighter future. That opportunity is enshrined in Lady Liberty's pedestal in that famous poem, The New Colossus. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-torn to me. My father believed in that promise. While in the Soviet Union's quotas limited opportunities for us, in America, our only limitations were our imagination. And like many immigrants, we were not only fleeing oppression, but also racing towards opportunity. James Truslow Adams described the American dream as a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for everyone according to ability or achievement, regardless of the circumstances of their birth. We must acknowledge that this dream did not emerge fully formed in the birth of our nation. In reality, opportunity has been tied to the expansion of rights and social safety nets to more Americans. The American dream will only survive if it's truly accessible. Future generations, people passed over in previous generations, both due to economic hardship and systemic barriers, need to believe that the dream is within reach. Throughout our history, Americans fighting to secure civil rights and economic opportunities for all have played a crucial role in expanding access to opportunity and prosperity. These courageous Americans reinforce the idea that the dream is not for just the privileged few, but for all who contribute to this great nation. I grew up just a few miles from here in Brooklyn. Not all of my childhood was easy. We didn't want for much. My dad had a safety net of a union job, and we had a good home life. Somewhere along the way, the opportunities afforded by this country allowed me to grow complacent. I squandered some of those opportunities at times. I was actually kicked out of my first university because it turns out that my professors disagreed with me that class attendance was optional. However, after working a half a year in the city, I returned to school to complete my education because I was refocused on serving in the military. And then I proceeded to get 2 master's degrees and a PhD, so perhaps I may have overcompensated slightly. Like the Americans in the story, likewise, the American story is one of missed opportunities and second chances. Our nation has often delayed doing the right thing, only to later recognize its mistakes and correct course. I think there's a famous line out there of Winston Churchill saying that America will do the right thing after it tries everything else. From the failures to address systemic discrimination to the inconsistencies in our foreign policy, America has at times struggled to live up to its ideals. At home, racial injustice, economic disparity, disenfranchisement have persisted for way too long. Abroad, we have sometimes failed to uphold the very principles we champion. Yet history has also shown that the American people have the power to change course, to push forward, and to ensure that our nation lives up to its founding principles. Growth and self-correction are part of the American identity, both individually and collectively. I started to discover that more and more during my 22 years of military service. I served as a troop leader and as a diplomat at U.S. embassies in Moscow and Kiev. And as a strategist, I authored the National Military Strategy for Russia. My experiences led me all the way to the White House's National Security Council. Over time, and countless opportunities have blessed me with the perspective and helped me understand who we are. While imperfect, we are nonetheless a unique country where the arc of history bends towards justice. I truly believe that. We've had setbacks, but if you look at the progress we've made, it bends towards justice. Through public service and my understanding of America and our fundamental values, I fully embraced the Army's institutional values and used them as a litmus test for my own actions. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. These are the measures of my performance. Along the way, those values prepared me to exercise moral courage as a reflex. That meant speaking up when I saw something wrong and resolving to never walk by a mistake. And my military leaders encouraged me to do so. I've noticed that in war movies or movies about the military, physical courage is what's heralded, it's what's prized. Society is very, very keen on rewarding physical courage with medals. But in my experience, physical courage under adrenaline necessitating instinctual action is rarely as important as moral courage, which requires forethought and the appreciation of risks and dangers. And moral courage is what transforms the world. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Mahatma Gandhi, and Abraham Lincoln in this very hall displayed immense moral courage at enormous personal cost. Thank you. Each one of these other leaders knew the personal risks and the dangers they would endure for their struggles. They still decided to stand up for justice and those that could not. Moral courage is not just the ability to stand firm in the face of opposition. It is the willingness to take risks, to challenge complacency, and to act when others hesitate. Training moral courage must become a fundamental component of competent leadership and cultivated in our society. And institutions like this help do that. They help drive those leaders that are emerging to be moral leaders. Because it is not enough to recognize injustice. We must be ready to confront it. Through this lens, I view the act of reporting presidential corruption as my clear duty. It may have been a small act of courage, but ultimately the decision felt easy to me. After being forced out of the military, I decided to write my first book to explain the values that drove my decision to hold the most powerful man in the world accountable. It was titled Here Right Matters, An American Story. In the book, I explained that I was channeling the courage of my father coming to the US at the age of 47, and my many years of service in the military, and my experiences in combat, and in hardship assignments around the world. I was able to stand up for what I knew was right because I had the perspective that America is different, and here right matters. Before I testified in Congress, my dad was deeply worried about the repercussions I would face. His concerns stemmed from his experience living under communism for most of his life. I tried to reassure him that my testimony about presidential corruption was proof that he made the right decision to come here. He had seen what happens to truth tellers under authoritarianism. He feared for me, but I told him, here right matters. This concept of moral courage is now more relevant than ever. Powerful elites are stripping away safety nets, individual rights, and the institutions that expanded opportunity and prosperity to countless millions. At home and abroad, I think this is the defining challenge of the 21st century. Will we be pulled back to the past, or are we marching forward to the future? Does humanity progress, or are we dragged backwards? We are living in the age-old struggle between despotism and democracy, between individual liberties and the tyranny of an elite minority. We risk a return to the rules of the jungle, where the strong do what they will and the weak suffer what they must. Yet history has proven one thing: when people fight back, the powerful prove brittle. Despots and dictators are often more fragile than they appear. Together, we have a choice. We live in a time where America is being tested, where apathy and complacency threaten to erode the very values that allowed my family and so many others to thrive. This is truly an inflection point for our great nation. America, democracy, isn't something we inherit. It's something we build every day. Thinking back on all the sacrifices that have allowed us to get to this point, I say to you all, we must not be the generation that lets democracy slip away. The antidote to this is us. It requires each of us to participate in the civic sphere, to protect the American dream. Unfortunately, too many Americans no longer see democracy's relevance. Nearly 100 million stayed home in the last election. Why? Because they feel that democracy does not impact their daily lives, that opportunity is out of reach. Worse yet, this apathy and lack of engagement has been used to advance a thoroughly anti-democratic vision of the United States held by a small circle of elites. We are seeing out-of-touch billionaires with no stake in democracy happily enriching themselves at the expense of working people. It continues to shock me because many of these ultra-wealthy need to look no further back than a generation or two, or their own lives, to see how prosperity is tied to the opportunities offered to them and their forebears. To me, it is abundantly clear that opportunity that has offered to immigrants and native-born alike is up to us to protect. We live in a world in which the despotism that we thought was vanquished is resurgent because of our complacency and our apathy. The comforts of living the American dream have made some of us lose sight of how unique and valuable the United States is. Meanwhile, too many others have been denied the fruits of our nation and are left feeling dejected, thinking that the successes and happiness that all Americans strive for is outside of their reach. I still believe in the American dream, and part of that means believing that the challenges we face today are the natural result of enormous strides we've made over the last 60 years in expanding the American dream for so many. Yet, it is the things that our society has truly failed to grapple with in the past that have come back to haunt us today. As opportunities expand and society changes, the old isms of the 20th century are gasping and grasping to take us backward to a time where opportunity was limited to too few. Consequently, more will have less. The future is not going to leave room for fence-sitters. Life as we know it in the United States will grow harder for the average American. We will be forced to shake off complacency and awaken our collective people power. It is in this way this crisis may directly provide more access to the American dream. It's counterintuitive. This hardship could help us regain our sense of community and allow for our leaders to emerge who will channel the energy of people power to bring about change. History teaches us that overreach often breeds correction. If we are all engaged and demonstrate our moral courage, we will soon have a unique opportunity to rebuild our institutions with renewed purpose, to ensure that democracy is more inclusive, that policies expand opportunity, and that those in power remain accountable. We must not simply rebuild what existed until now, but advance our society for the sake of our children. When democracy delivers its blow to despotism, we need not return to a broken system that the despots find so easily to destroy. In my recent book, I argued for a new form of American leadership that understands the centrality of values to interests, a vision and a concept of democracy that better serves our security needs and enables us to recapture moral leadership in the world. A values approach based on expanded opportunity will better serve the citizenry and help end the scourge of apathy and complacency. As we look towards the future, I would like to invoke President Lincoln's speech at this hallowed institution in 1860. He stood here and warned us, progress is not automatic. It's a choice we make and a fight we take on. Finding a way to ensure access to opportunity for all Americans is decidedly difficult, but it will be necessary if the United States and its democratic system of governance are to fully recover and fulfill the promise of a more perfect union. We cannot let fellow Americans be cast aside by a regressive moment in our society, nor should we pass the generational struggles against poverty and inequality as a burden to our children. Our inability to reckon with the impacts of deindustrialization and discrimination placed us in this difficult position today. The impact of artificial intelligence will have even a more acute impact on our economy and society going forward. It will be more disruptive. It will happen in just years and not decades. We must do the difficult things that are needed to give all Americans access to opportunity and heal some of the causes of our current division to address the crises on the horizon. We should avoid thinking of this as a cost and something to be weighed against, but rather as an investment in the future of this country. It is not enough to push back against the efforts to cut social safety nets. We must build something greater, something that brings prosperity to more Americans. To echo the words of our former president, we will soon have the opportunity to build back better and deliver a greater vision of America. As we look towards the future, we must also recognize the immense responsibility that comes with this moment in history. When I left the military, I knew my mission was not over. I wrote about this responsibility in a Washington Post op-ed on my very first day as a civilian, the idea that my service to our country would not end when the uniform came off. I pledged to continue to advance U.S. national security interests and advocate for values-based leadership and for public service. That is why I dedicated my efforts to Vote Vets, an organization committed to giving veterans a voice in politics and policy. We help elect veteran leaders who have lived the values of service and sacrifice. Those Army values I reference are not only applicable to military service. They extend into civic engagement and public leadership, and to ensuring that America upholds the very ideals we have defended abroad. At Vote Vets, our work goes beyond elections. We also amplify the voices of trusted veteran messengers, breaking through partisan noise with messages that resonate, messages rooted in experience and sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to this nation. Vote Vets fights to make sure leaders who understand service, who have lived it, are at the table. Now, what are you all doing? Well, you're showing up. You're getting engaged. Keep showing up. And don't lose heart. I urge you to not grow disenchanted when things look bleak. They're going to get tougher. We have elections coming up, and your vote in elections is critical. It is the means to hold your leaders accountable. The upcoming special elections and the midterms are the best way to reinforce the power, those in power to listen to you. Narratives get set with these elections. It's not just about a win in, let's say, Virginia or New Jersey. It's bigger than that. It's sending a message to those that will not listen, that now fear on the right being primaried from the right, to recognize that there is a general election on the horizon and they will be swept away. So participation in these elections are critical. Our battle for America, for democracy, is ongoing, and it requires participation at every level. Authoritarians seek to divide and exhaust. We win by forming coalitions and showing up for each other. Remember what connects us. We are all Americans, and if we put aside our petty grievances to form a movement of movements, nothing will stand in our way. Just as Lincoln warned, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present. The same holds true today. If there is anything to be learned from recent history, it's that democracy does not sustain itself. So I call on you to be brave, be courageous, organize, and hold leaders accountable. Push for policies that reflect America's ideals. Democracy, America, demand action. We fight for it or we lose it. Let's fight. Thank you.
Ask them what they're actually doing with all that money that we gave them, first of all. That's what I would like to ask them. Just saying. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. First of all, it's an incredible honor to be here. It really is. I want to thank, it is, thank you. I want to thank Cooper, especially Chris, Colonel Vindman, of course. What an honor. And everyone here in the audience for showing up and doing the work and helping me speak through such a powerful historic platform to get the message out. I have to begin by acknowledging Michael Tubbs' talk at the Long Now Foundation in 2022, where he spoke so eloquently about the urgency of the ideas I'm going to address today. I highly recommend watching his complete talk. He says it so much better than I can. I'm Jeff Atwood. I co-founded Stack Overflow, a Q&A website for programmers that, much like Wikipedia, builds a Creative Commons encyclopedia of programming knowledge for the whole world to learn from. In the process, we built a digital democracy, a community of the programmers, by the programmers, for the programmers. We voted to rank questions and answers. We held community elections for moderators using ranked choice voting. We did it democratically because that's the American way. That is what I know. I also co-founded Discourse, which also builds Creative Commons, shared knowledge, and a looser conversational format. The goal of both of these projects was, and still is, to create freely shared knowledge while working together as a community. We believe information that we create belongs to all of us. It belongs to future generations that can build towards even greater goals, ones we can't even imagine yet. My success with these two companies, one might say, is an embodiment of the American dream. One might also ask, what is the American dream? In 1931, at the height of the Great Depression, James Truslow Adams first defined the American dream as a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity according to ability or achievement, not a dream of motor cars and high wages merely, but a dream of social order in which everyone shall be able to attain to the fullest statures of which they are innately capable and be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of where they were born and what they come from. I want to know what those words mean to us today. I need to know what parts of the American dream we all still have in common, because honestly, I'm not sure. I had to make some sense of what's happening to our country. I've been writing on my blog since 2004, and on November 7th, I started writing what became the most difficult piece of writing I have ever written. I asked so many Americans to tell me, what does the American dream personally mean to you? And I wrote it all down. Later in November, I attended, this just happened to happen, a theater performance of The Outsiders, based on the novel by H.E. Hinton at my son's public high school. All I really knew about it was the famous Stay Gold line from the movie adaptation. But as I sat there in that audience, among my neighbors, watching the complete story, acted out in front of these teenagers, I realized what it meant, sharing the American dream. We cannot merely attain the dream. The dream is incomplete until we share it with our fellow Americans. That act of sharing is the final realization of everything our dream stands for. I finally had a name for my essay. It's the hardest part of an essay is the name. Stay Gold, America. And I published it on January 7th with a pledge to share the American dream. In the first part of the pledge, the short term, our family made 8 $1 million donations to the following nonprofit groups: Team Rubicon, Children's Hunger Fund, PEN America, the Trevor Project, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Global Refuge, Planned Parenthood, and First Generation Investors. Thank you. Thank you. But that wasn't enough. The needs were too urgent. Beyond that, we made additional $1 million donations to reinforce our technical infrastructure here in America. Wikipedia, the Internet Archive, the Common Crawl Foundation, Let's Encrypt, pioneering independent internet journalism, and several other crucial open source software projects that power much of the infrastructure of the internet world today. I encourage every American to contribute soon, however you can, to organizations you feel are effectively helping those most currently in need. But short-term fixes are not enough. The pledge to share the American dream requires a much more ambitious second act. Deeper, long-term changes that will take decades. Over the next 5 years, my family pledges half our remaining wealth to plant a seed towards foundational long-term efforts, ensuring that all Americans continue to have the same fair access to the American dream that Colonel Vindman and I had. And let me tell you about my path to the American dream. It was rocky. My parents were born into deep poverty in Mercer County, West Virginia, and Beaufort County, North Carolina. Our family eventually clawed our way to the bottom of the middle class in Virginia. I won't dwell on it. Every family has their own problems. But we did not remain middle class for long. Through all this, my parents got the most important thing right. They loved me, openly and unconditionally. That's everything. It's the only reason I am standing here in front of you today. With my family's support, I managed to achieve a solid public education in Chesterfield County, Virginia, and had the incredible privilege of an affordable state education at the University of Virginia. This is a college uniquely rooted in the beliefs of one of our most prominent founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. He was a living paradox, a man of profound ideals, and yet so flawed, so trapped in the values of his time and place. And still, this man wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness at the top of the Declaration of Independence. Those words were, and still are, revolutionary. They define our fundamental shared American values, although we have not always lived up to them. Because the American dream isn't about us succeeding alone by ourselves. It's about connecting with each other and succeeding together. I've been so concerned about wealth concentration here in America ever since I watched a 2012 video by Politizane, which is still amazing, by the way, illustrating just how extreme wealth concentration already was. And this was over 10 years ago. I had no idea how close we were to the American Golden Age from the late 1800s. This period was given a name by historians, referencing Mark Twain's 1873 novel, The Gilded Age, a tale of today, During this time, labor strikes often turned violent, with the Homestead Strike of 1892 resulting in deadly confrontations between workers and Pinkerton guards hired by factory owners. Rapid industrialization created hazardous working conditions in factories and mines and railroads, and thousands died due to insufficient safety regulations and employers who simply prioritized profit over the welfare of their own workers. In January 2025, while I was still writing Stay Gold America, we entered the period of greatest wealth concentration in the entirety of American history. As of 2021, the top 1% of households controlled 32% of all wealth in this country, while the bottom 50% had less than 3%. That was in 2021. Spoiler, it hasn't improved since then. It's gotten a lot worse. We can no longer say Gilded Age. We must now say the first Gilded Age. And today, in our second Gilded Age, more and more people find their path to the American dream blocked. When Americans face unaffordable education, lack of accessible health care, and lack of affordable housing, they aren't just disadvantaged, they are trapped, often burdened by massive debt. They have no foundation to even build their lives on. They watch desperately, working as hard as they can, while life simply passes them by, without even the freedom to choose their own lives. They don't have time to build a career. They don't have time to learn, to improve. They don't get to start a business. They can't choose where their children will grow up, or whether to have children at all, because they can't afford to. Here in the land of opportunity, the pursuit of happiness has become an endless, maybe an impossible task for too many of us. We are denying people any real chance of achieving the dream that we promised them, that we promised the entire world when we founded this nation. It is such a profound betrayal of everything we ever dreamed as a country. Without a stable foundation to build a life on, our fellow Americans cannot even pursue the American dream, much less achieve it. And I want to ask you this, as an American. Tell me, what is the purpose of a dream we've left unshared with so many for so long? What's happening to our dream? Are we really willing to let go of our values so easily? We're Americans. We fight. We fight for our values. The values embodied in this dream, our dream, the one we founded our country on. Why aren't we sharing the American dream? Why aren't we giving everyone a fair chance at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by simply providing them the fundamentals they need to get there? The dream worked for both Colonel Vindman and me decades ago, and we both deeply believe that the American dream can still work for everyone if we ensure every American has the same fair chance we did. The American dream was never about a few people becoming extraordinarily wealthy. It's about having an equal chance to succeed and to pursue your dreams, your own happiness. It belongs to you. I think we owe you at least that. I think we owe ourselves at least that. So what can we do about this? There are no easy answers. I can't even pretend to have the answer because there is not any one answer to give. Nothing worth doing, like democracy, is ever that simple. But I can tell you this. All the studies and all the data I've looked at have strongly pointed towards one foundational thing we can do here in America over the next 5 years. Immediately after this talk, I will be publishing another blog post. The road not taken is guaranteed minimum income. Natalie Foster, co-founder of the Economic Security Project, makes a powerful case for the idea that with all this concentrated wealth, we can offer a guaranteed minimum income in the poorest areas of this country, the areas of most need, where money goes the farthest to unlock vast amounts of untapped human potential. We believe GMI could be perhaps the greatest transformation of this country since the Industrial Revolution. And this isn't a new idea. We've been doing this a while now in different forms, but we never called it guaranteed minimum income. In 1797, Thomas Paine proposed a retirement pension fund funded by estate taxes. It didn't go anywhere, but it planted a seed. Much later, that was realized in the implementation of the Social Security Act in 1935. The Social Security Act is the most popular and the most effective program to emerge from this era. It provides a guaranteed income for retirees. Before Social Security, half of seniors in this country lived in poverty. Today, only 10% of seniors live in poverty. In his 1967 book, Martin Luther King Jr. made the moral case for a form of basic income, universal basic income. King believed that economic insecurity was at the root of all inequality. He stated that a guaranteed income, direct cash disbursements, was the simplest and best way to fight poverty in this country. In 1972, Congress established the Supplemental Security Income Program, providing direct cash assistance to low-income, blind, elderly, and disabled individuals with little or no income. That cash could be used for food, for housing, for medical expenses, the essentials for financial stability. As of January 2025, over 7.3 million people receive SSI benefits. In 1975, Congress passed the Tax Reduction Act, which established the Earned Income Tax Credit. This tax credit benefits working-class parents with children, and it encourages work by increasing the income of low-income workers. In 2023, it lifted about 6.4 million people out of poverty, including 3.4 million children. According to the Census Bureau, it is the second most effective anti-poverty tool after Social Security. Now, in 2019, directly inspired by King, Mayor Michael Tubbs, who I mentioned earlier, at age 26, won a Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration. It provided 125 residents with $500 per month in unconditional cash payments for 2 years. The program found that the recipients experienced improved financial stability, increased full-time employment, and enhanced well-being. In my Stay Gold America essay, I referenced the Robert Frost Stay Gold poem and Hinton's famous novel, The Outsiders, which urge us to retain our youthful ideals as we grow older. Ideals that I say are embodied in the American dream. Our proposal to ensure access to the American dream in the long term is guaranteed minimum income, an improved version of universal basic income. It is simpler, it's more practical, it's more scalable, and it directly addresses the root of economic insecurity with minimum bureaucracy. With our $50 million, half of our family's wealth, we are partnering with Give Directly, who oversaw the most GMI studies in the United States, and Open Research, who just completed the largest, most detailed GMI study in this country in 2023. We're all working together to launch a new guaranteed minimum income initiative in rural American communities. Network effects between communities explain why equality of opportunity is so effective and why a shared American dream is the most powerful dream of all. The potential of the American dream becomes vastly greater as more people have access to it because they share it. They share it with their families. They share it with their friends and their neighbors. The groundbreaking UBI study data, this is freely available on their website. Go look at it. Showed that when you give money to the poorest among us, they consistently go out of their way to share, and they have nothing. They share with others in desperate need. Those most impacted by the problem have the solutions, if we're willing to listen to them. And the power of opportunity is not in what it can do for one person, but how it connects and strengthens bonds between us. When you empower a couple, you allow them to build a family. When you empower families, you allow them to build a community. When you guarantee fundamentals, you're providing a foundation for those connections between us to grow and thrive. And that is the incredible power and value of a community that we will unlock. That is what we're investing in. Each other. A system where there are no guarantees creates conflict. It creates inequality. A massive concentration of wealth in so few hands weakens connections between us and prevents new ones. But America began as a place of connection. Millions of us came together to build this nation, not individually, together. And I tell you this, equality is connection. And connection is more valuable than any product any company will ever sell you. You may ask, why are you focusing on introducing guaranteed minimum income to rural communities specifically? Well, there are consistently higher poverty rates in rural counties. We also hope to encourage entrepreneurship in these areas because we believe all of America should be prosperous. Rural areas also offer smaller populations, which lets us start small with many tightly controlled studies, which we can carefully scale and improve for larger areas. We hope to build a large body of scientific data from these studies showing that guaranteed minimum income really does improve the lives and the communities of our fellow Americans. The initial plan is to target 2 counties that I have a personal connection to and are currently in poverty decades later. My father was born in Mercer County, West Virginia, where the collapse of coal mining devastated them. Their way of life is all but gone, and good jobs are very hard to find. My mother's birthplace, Beaufort County, North Carolina, has been hit just as hard. Farming and factory jobs are disappearing, and families are left wondering, what's next? What do we do? Our 3rd county is yet to be decided, but will be also facing the same systemic generational obstacles to economic stability and achieving the American dream. We will work with existing local groups to coordinate these GMI studies, where community members choose to enroll. We will conduct outreach and provide mentorship to these opt-in study participants. This is community building in practice. It will be teamwork between fellow Americans. And we also hope veterans will play a crucial role in our effort. We plan to work with these communities and veteran-serving organizations to engage veterans to execute and support our GMI programs, to participate. These are the same veterans who served our country with distinction, returning home with exceptional leadership skills and a deep commitment to their communities. They fought for us. Their involvement ensures that these programs reflect core American values of self-reliance and community service to our fellow Americans. But we'll also partner with established community organizations, churches, civic groups, community colleges, local businesses. Those partnerships integrate our GMI studies with existing support systems rather than creating new ones. Give directly and open research will gather extensive data from their existing body of work and improve on it. We'll measure employment, entrepreneurship, education, health, and community engagement. We'll conduct regular interviews with participants to understand their experience. How is this working for you? How can we make it better? You tell us, because we're listening. We want to make it better together. And economic security isn't only about individual well-being. It's the bedrock of democracy. When people aren't constantly worried about feeding themselves, feeding their family, having decent health care, having a place to even live, we have given them room to breathe. With GMI, we have given them freedom. The freedom to raise their children. The freedom to start their own business. The freedom to even choose where they work. The freedom to volunteer. The freedom to vote. But this isn't about ideology or government. It's about us as Americans. Possibly the greatest unlocking of human potential in our entire history. I do not say these things lightly because I've seen it work. I've done it myself. I've looked at all the existing study data. A little bit of money is incredibly transformational to people in poverty, especially deep poverty. The people who need it the most. The people who can't live up to their potential because they're so busy simply trying to survive in this country. Imagine, please imagine with me, what they could do if we gave them just a little breathing room. GMI is a long-term investment in the future of what America should be. The way we wrote it down in the Declaration of Independence, perhaps incompletely, but our democracy was always meant to change, to adapt, and improve. I'd like to conclude by mentioning Aaron Swartz. He was a precocious teenage programmer, much like myself. Aaron helped develop RSS feeds, co-founded Reddit, and worked with Creative Commons to create flexible copyright licenses for the common good. He used technology to make information universally accessible to everyone. Aaron created a system to download public domain court documents from a government database that charged fees for accessing what he believed should be freely available public information. And he was right. A few years later, while visiting MIT under their open campus policy, and at the time he was a research fellow at Harvard, he used MIT's network to download millions of academic articles from JSTOR, another fee-charging online academic journal repository, intending to make this knowledge freely accessible to everyone. And since taxpayers had funded much of this research, why shouldn't that knowledge be freely available to all of us? Federal prosecutors aggressively pursued felony charges against Aaron for this act, with up to 35 years in prison. Very aggressively. Despite JSTOR declining to pursue charges, and MIT eventually causing for leniency, facing overwhelming legal pressure and the prospect of being labeled a felon for life. Aaron took his own life at age 26. That was a bad day. This sparked widespread criticism of prosecutorial overreach and prompted discussions about open access to information. 8 days later, in this very room you're sitting in now, there was a standing room only memorial service praising Aaron for his commitment to the public good. Aaron pursued what was right for we the people. He chose to build the public good, despite knowing there would be risks. He chose to be an activist. Well, I think we should all choose to be activists, to be brave, to stand up for our defining American principles. There are only two things I ask of you today. Visit givedirectly.org, where we're documenting our journey and findings from these 3 GMI rural county studies. Let's find out together how guaranteed minimum income can transform American lives and possibly the entirety of America itself. Talk about guaranteed minimum income in your communities. Meet with your state and local officials. Share the existing study data. Share outcomes. Ask them about conducting GMI studies like ours in your area. Because we tell ourselves stories about why some people succeed and others don't. And the truth is, a lot of it is random. I want you to challenge those stories. Economic security is not charity. It is an investment in my family is committing $50 million to this endeavor. And if honestly, if I could, I would do even more. But imagine if we had even more to share. Imagine how much more we could do if we had more to build it with together. Decades from now, people will look back and wonder why it took us so long to share our dream of a better, richer, and fuller life with all our fellow Americans. Please join us on this grand experiment to share our American dream. Colonel Vindman and I believe everyone deserves a fair chance at what was promised when we founded this nation: life, liberty, and the pursuit of the American dream. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we start the Q&A period, I need my children to stop asking which child is the favorite child. I'm not going to answer that here. That will be answered offline.
So we have just 4 questions. We'll just start. I'm not sure which one. We'll figure out which one we answer. From Brian Jordan, what safeguards and improved guardrails would you implement in our government to ensure democracy is protected? I guess that's for me.
All yours, baby.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to understand is that I think our founding fathers were visionaries and accounted for a lot of different possibilities, but they never accounted for a chief executive that was going to weaponize government, that was going to attempt to destroy the institutions, attempt to destroy the American dream, and undo democracy. I think they believed that they put enough different protocols in place, whether that's representative democracy. We don't vote directly for the president. They expected somewhere along the way that the American public would, and I think some of them were creative enough actually to just ruminate on the idea of what happens if you do have this kind of dangerous figure in place, but they never really quite imagined it. So there's an enormous amount of power vested in the President of the United States. I think the checks on that power are that we're a federalist system. We have 50 different states that have their own different decision-making authorities. Basically, any powers that are not explicitly the governments or federal governments are the states. And I think the importance of states is going to be quite a bit more apparent over the course of the next 4 years, with our red states falling in line and blue states battling it out with the administration when they overreach and they conduct their illegal activities. I've taken to calling the executive branch the implementing branch of government, because I think is a better way to describe what is happening. We have 3 co-equal branches of government, a judiciary, a legislative branch, and then we have the implementing branch, which is supposed to to implement the laws that the legislative branch passes, and carry out the orders and the decisions of the judiciary. Right now, it doesn't look like we have an implementing branch that is interested in following any of those protocols. But the courts are going to play a critical role going forward. I think the fact is that we've seen a lot of reversals. I heard somebody talk about this as a normal order of things. You have federal judges, then you have your circuit judges and you go all the way down up to the Supreme Court before those decisions become final. And what we haven't really had are cases that have run through this whole process. We are on the cusp of a constitutional crisis, but we're not there yet. It's when the chief executive potentially flaunts the decisions of the Supreme Court that things get dangerous. But there are some indications that that there are maybe there's not a lot of courage in Congress at the moment. But there are some indications that some of the Republican leadership is willing to hold the line. There are indications that there are bridges too far. And in terms of, that's the way I think we survive. I think we have some institutions that have evolved, existed over the years. I don't in any way believe that the military is going to be put out in the street and firing into peaceful protesters. I spent a lot of time talking about the values of the Army values, but the other branches hold similar values. They'll be compelled to do some awful things. They're operating on the southern border because those are legal orders from the President of the United States, but those are not illegal orders. We are trained to disobey illegal orders. That's a long way to say that there are a lot of challenges here on the back end. I'm not sure if I have any particularly creative ideas. I think the legislative branch, in certain small ways, I'll give you an example, fearing that Trump might withdraw from NATO, legislated that the president is not able to withdraw from NATO under his own authority, or there's a laborious process to go to. But that doesn't really account for the fact that the president could suspend or choose not to act if one of our allies is under attack. I'm not sure what kind of how you legislate forward. I don't know if I've got a better idea than that. You think you have anything to add?
One thing I would add is we need people, there's what we call the thin red line. When someone with authority over you asks you to do something, but it violates the moral law, that it doesn't degrade other humans, you don't cross that line. And you have to push back and say, no, I won't do this. We need more people like that. Now, we can argue about where that line is, but I think it's fairly clear.
I think the only other thing I'd add to this, just reflecting on it for a second longer, is something that I tried to mention in my remarks. We have not seen people power yet. I don't think that the line of the threat to democracy really resonated with swaths of the American public because they're more concerned about kitchen table issues. We're facing a 4 years in which we'll have the social safety nets stripped away, impacts on Social Security, wildly popular programs, Medicaid, Medicare, SSI, all sorts of things that are potentially going to be stripped away. It's hard to be apathetic or complacent under those circumstances. And those are two different issues. I think complacency is when you don't perceive the threat, you don't necessarily buy the line that we're in danger or that we'll be fine. I think a lot of folks didn't think the president would be as bad as the warnings were from Project 2025. And apathy is that people weren't reached, that they had more important things to worry about. Like they couldn't show up because they were working that day. Elections on our work day, on Tuesday.
So Alexander, what if, wild concept, voting day was a national holiday? That would be nice.
Yes.
And not that hard to do.
That is a good one, actually. That helps
go for
generate
the
people
low-hanging
power.
fruit here, man.
Yeah. These are not new ideas, but I think that's exactly right. I think the things that will protect the right to vote are going to be critically important going forward as we recover from these next 4 years.
And I think these ideas tie together because with guaranteed minimum income, you actually have time to think about the complex work of democracy. When you're so busy just trying to survive, I mean, how can you relate to it? So I think they complement each other.
All right, this one is from Joseph Osborne. Please share a couple of different calls to action to to the audience who fall on varying spectrums of experience in education and wealth?
Well, if you have wealth, give it to me. Because I got some ideas, and I think they're pretty good. And I have all the will to execute that there is. So give it to me. As for the others, do what you can. Work locally. I think that's really powerful. Really ask these pointed questions. Why aren't we doing this? Why are we doing this other nonsense that doesn't make any sense? Why aren't we doing this? Really pressure them. Do not let them wiggle out of this. Ask the hard questions and demand answers.
So a couple of different things. First of all, I'd like to bottle up whatever it is that is infected.
I'm just pissed off.
Yeah.
And I have money.
I'd take that and spread it throughout Silicon Valley, because there's definitely a lot of good that could come from the.
And I think there's a lot. Listen,
Yeah.
I know we want to eat the rich. They're delicious. I get it. But like some of them. But there are a lot of good people out there. They just need a clear call to action, like something that they can do. I think a lot of what Colonel Vindman and I are saying is these are things we can do that are practical, that make sense.
So I would offer this. I think a lot of us, there are folks that are joining us from the Cooper Union community, but representing all sorts of different walks of life. I guess to a certain extent, what I see is that a net will be under pressure. And finding connections, even if they're loose connections, between like-minded folks and generating that network effect. I think a lot of us are still shocked. I'm certainly, having expected a lot of what's unfolding today. I mean, individually, a lot of these things are not surprising. They were written into a Project 2025. But the sheer volume of weaponized government coming together is a hard thing to contend with. So I think a lot of people are reeling. And I think this was a point I was trying to make. This is a moment where we might need to catch our breath, but there is going to be in the near future a time to act. Just look at some of the horrific stories coming out about people being rounded up, picked up off the streets, and put into detention. Americans and undocumented alike. Some pretty awful things. The question is, what groups are you in your own personal lives? Those are your neighborhoods. Those are your communities. That could be your church groups. It could be your teams that you're playing on. Those are going to be called on. All of us are going to be called on to show up on important events like Election Day, or just show up and make your voice heard. Calling out your congressman, your senator, your local officials, making your voice heard is not a fruitless affair. If you just look at what's happening to the Republicans when they go to their town halls and they're seeing what happens, they don't want to do them anymore. All right, so I think they're feeling some of that heat. Turn it up, make them understand that if they don't act in a way that aligns with your views, our views, that they'll be swept away. They're political creatures. They have an unbelievably developed sense of self-preservation. Put that in jeopardy. From Val K. Duran, thinking about a path forward, do you see a role for an investment in infrastructure, specifically benefiting public education facilities?
I have sort of a contrarian opinion about this. I'm not sure how many people are going to like it. I think the internet really unlocked education for everyone. It's a question of discipline and will. And yes, children need structure, students need structure, that's all good. But the reality is, anything you want to learn, go to the internet and learn it. Go nuts. But we still need structure. And we have to provide that structure so people can learn. But appreciate the reason this works so well rurally, these people have the internet. How did they even have encyclopedias in the 30s? Where would they get them? At the library? You can do or be anything using the internet. And that is incredibly powerful as long as you have the breathing room to actually do it. And are not so busy surviving, you can't improve yourself. So my take is a little bit contrarian. I think education is hugely important, but we have forgotten that the internet exists, apparently. And my God, I've learned so many things. I probably don't need to know, but I've learned a lot of things on the internet.
So education is something that is at the forefront of mind. I've got a 14-year-old daughter in 8th grade, and one of the reasons we live where we live now is because the schools coming out of COVID were not keeping up. They were under-resourced, and there were not a lot of good options. So we made the choice to move, and frankly, I'm a product of New York City public schools education. Our daughter goes to a private school where the classroom sizes are small. So clearly we're under-investing in education. And the biggest mover, I think, besides guaranteed minimum income, that's just that's the floor.
It's a starting point. It's not a panacea.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, look, if we do this, all problems will be solved, because that's insane. I mean, I am a rich white man, so what I say is important, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, it's far from the only solution. It's just one of the most fundamental. Sure. And if you don't believe me, believe Martin Luther King. Yeah. He was right. Yeah. Fully right.
So it's the minimum requirement, but I think what allows mobility is education, and certainly I recognize that. When I got kicked out of university, that in order to achieve anything I wanted to do, I mean, I was looking to be a commissioned officer, an infantryman, have some adventures and give back, and I knew that I needed to continue on education, and it's something that I continued to take seriously throughout my life to improve my capabilities as a Army officer, as a foreign area officer. So I think this is something that I'm deeply concerned about. We have so many different needs. I think, I don't have the solutions to these. This requires like true experts in the studies that Jeff is undertaking, but it's obviously the source of mobility in the nation.
I think it's a yes and it's a question of which one is further down in the hierarchy of needs. And I think food, shelter, and work that matters, pretty high up there. You can get educated at work too, believe me.
From Gadaman Asarwatham, hopefully I got that right. Are affordable healthcare, education, and home owners core values of the American dream? How can we make this possible?
Write it down. Mm-hmm. Make an amendment. Go do it. Good luck, but let's do that.
I'm a student, and they're getting more and more expensive each year. I think certainly in my vision of how we recover from this, it's not just simply going back to or replacing one for one what was lost, what was destroyed under this administration. I think a fundamental need is universal health care. It's another one of those things that really can destroy families. For me, I think there's an opportunity to take a look at expanding the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and making sure more folks are covered. Education, obviously, is foundational. Home ownership, that's a tough one. I think the idea of providing an income where there's enough resource to be able to afford a rental property or a home, but the way to access to American dream is obviously through home ownership. It's the inevitable savings fund. So anything we could do to advance those are absolutely critical. Some may be more higher up on the priority than others.
And one way of writing it down is just, we're going to do it. They can't stop us. I don't care. We're doing this regardless. And that body of data, that body of results, what we do with that is kind of up to us. But we will have that.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
And your action and courage moving forward.
Amen.